its fabric from the land of the five rivers.
Believe that the greatness of the Raiders would be in its future.
Everybody,
what's good, man. Appreciate everybody's patience. We are late, man. We need, and this is we gotta improve this season. We cannot be late. We have to go on time. We appreciate everybody coming through, being patient with us. There's a lot to talk about. I mean, we'll get into everything. Marcus Peters, Jimmy G officially back from injury, ready to go. First day of training camp. Training camp officially started today. I know the rookies reported on Thursday, but the vets, everybody on the team reported today. And I think tomorrow is where they have their first official training camp practice, right? So that's going to be exciting to hear who's killing it in training camp. Man, it's a lot to talk about, man. But what's up, Ray? How you been?
Oh, I'm good, man. Hey, football's back. Training camp is here. Veterans are reporting. Team's getting healthy. So overall, man, I'm excited. We also got a new addition, which we're going to get into here in a little bit. But what about you, man?
Yeah, man, I'm excited to talk about the moves, the latest with the Raiders, man. It's been a slow overall, it's been like a slow offseason, but now things are picking up. But recently, a couple of players, we'll ease up into the big news. And I think you were mentioning there are a couple players that got cut already. Yeah. And what players got cut?
So we're going to start with quarterback Chase Garbers. Chase Garbers has been released, and also a defensive back. Obviously, got to make room for the new addition. Ike Brown has been released from the Las Vegas Raiders. So the cornerback position.
Oh, your audio went out. Yay! Your audio went out. Yep. It's all good, man. But yeah, man, we're gonna get into Raiders training camp. Obviously, a couple players got cut, probably in reaction to Marcus Peters signing with the Raiders. And we can get into that in a second. But before we get into that, Tyree Wilson and Byron Young got hurt, or they went into training camps POP, or what's it's all these NFL names, NFI and
NFL, non-football injury. Then there's POP, player unable to perform.
Are you concerned?
So me and you had a conversation on this on phone a little bit back before training camp and before season 2 started. And I told you, man, watch Tyree Wilson as this might linger into week 1. Yeah. Like, what I don't want to see is him miss all of training camp and then get into week 1. And he's just trying to find his footing in the NFL because it's really going to delay his production. I'm not necessarily worried. Obviously we talked about it, so it's kind of expected. But I just hope that this isn't an injury that continues to linger on into the season. Hopefully here in the next 2 weeks or so, they can kind of ramp him back up. And I'd really like to see him get some preseason games. Maybe that final preseason game, I'm trying to see him get some reps ramping up into week 1. So right now, my concern isn't through the roof or anything. this was as expected for me personally. But we're going to kind of see if we get to preseason week 3 and he's not a full go in training camp and they're ramping him up for week 1, then yeah, I've got a little bit of cause for concern.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, look, we're excited with this draft because we see the possibilities. And if these players can't get on the field, that kind of throws a wrench at least in the 2023 season. Guys like Tyree Wilson, we're expecting them to contribute to this team. We see the talent. Even Byron Young. I mean, it's not like he has a whole lot of competition. There is competition, but he's a 3rd-round pick, and he actually has a good chance of possibly starting. And I'm not sure if he doesn't come back soon enough, someone could get a leg up. He's a rookie. They're going to be like, you know what, let's let this guy stay in the, let him stay in the depth chart, and he's going to have to work his way out, which is a good thing. You know what I mean? But at the same time, like, it's hopefully we can see him at a training camp at some point. But let's get into it, man. Marcus Peters, Oakland native. I wanted to actually play a clip of actually him signing. He has some words for Raider Nation. He signs with the Raiders officially after all these rumors, and we've heard all these rumors, and we wanted to see if the Oakland native can come back. But let me just play the clip of him officially signing and having a message for Raider Nation.
Just win, baby. That's the only message I got for y'all. Let's do it. We got to up the standard, and the standard is going to be set. Just win, baby. That's the only message. So
this is a guy, you know what I mean? You're gonna get 100%. He plays hard. He's tough. I know he's on the wrong side of 30. He's 30 years old. He's coming off 1 year removed from an ACL injury. I think last year was his first year coming back from ACL. So it must have been tough. And we'll get into all the nitty-gritty details of what happened last season. But I think getting a veteran to add to this cornerback room that's proven, that's done some stuff in this league, that's a playmaker, that's a ball hawk, I think is a big step for the Raiders. What do you think of the move, man?
Overall, I mean, I like it because the biggest part of this whole deal that I really like is that this brings an alpha dog into a room that we've needed it. We have a room full of a bunch of guys, but we needed that one player to come in who's well respected around the league, established, able to go and get turnovers. You think of a Casey Hayward. You think of when we brought back Charles Woodson. And I'm not comparing Marcus Peters to Charles Woodson by any means, but the ability to be a playmaker and a ball hawk, ones that players around the league respect. And when things get real out on the field, like, they're going to need a voice to look to. And I don't think that we've had that in a little while. And I think Marcus Peters brings that dog mentality. Max Crosby alluded to it last year. We need just more dogs on defense. Mm-hmm. And when you look at every level of this defense, you go out and get Marcus Epps, who is a leader in Philly. You look at the cornerback room, and now you have a Marcus Peters, a guy who's just a bit gritty of a player, creates turnovers. You got Max Crosby. You bring in a veteran like Robert Spillane into the linebacker room. Overall, I think step by step they're adding to this defense, and I like what Marcus Peters can bring to the DB room.
Yeah, I mean, he played 13 games in Baltimore last season. He had 47 tackles, two for a loss, a sack, and an interception. But that's where all the positivity ends from last season. Like, he struggled, and one of the things that he struggled with was covering. The main job of a cornerback. He played in 13 starts. He gave up 54 catches, 711 receiving yards, 4th most in the league. And also he was tied 2nd in the NFL with 7 touchdowns, which is not something that you want a starting corner to be doing out there. But like I said, he was recovering from an ACL injury. Not everybody's Adrian Peterson, who can just come back after having an ACL injury the year before and then having 2,000 yards the following season. Certain players, they need some time to recover, and I think that's what the Raiders are betting on. They're betting on him having a redemption season. He's playing for his hometown team. Obviously, they're in Las Vegas, but he grew up a Raider fan in Oakland. So he wants to show out for his family. He wants to represent. So I'm rooting for him. And then I think we just found out that he has the number 24 jersey, which I feel like is fitting. Marshawn Lynch had the number 24 jersey. We all know the number 24 jersey is like that number when it comes to Raider players. But yeah, man, what do you think with the move overall? Like, do you feel like if it went left, what's like the negatives do you see from like this move? I know we can look at the positives.
Yeah, no,
Let's say
no.
positive.
Yeah, we'll get into some positive, but I do want to bring up the negative aspect to this because there is a few, right? And historically, Marcus Peters has been known to play passionately, to say the least, on the field. Last year, though, that equated to 8 penalties. And I want to really break down these 8 penalties because they're significant. Because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them came in the third and fourth quarter on big time moments of the games, even specifically in the playoffs of Cincinnati. And we all know with the Raiders penalty history, we know that playing predominantly in a man coverage system, Marcus Peters is going to get handsy. He's going to get calls. So there's going to be times where you're rooting on Marcus Peters because he goes out there and makes a big play, turns the ball over. But there are going to be crucial points in this season where it's 3rd and 6 and he gets a pass interference or he gets an illegal hands to the face and it's going to move the chains and it's going to keep teams in the games. So there's going to be that push and pull of Marcus Peters that we have to get ready for. Also, when it comes to creating turnovers like that, you're going to give and you're going to take. So as much as he's going to get interceptions, you're going to really have to look at what he's going to be giving up in coverage as well. You alluded to, I believe, 7 touchdowns last year. Yeah. And the good thing for the Raiders is historically year 2 in ACL injuries, that's your best year. So this is going into year 2 of the ACL. He's playing for the team that he grew up in. We're hoping that he's tapping in to that fountain of youth a little bit. We'll see. For me, obviously, it's a little bit too late for Marcus Peters for me personally, but I like the addition because I like what he brings to the room. And honestly, I wouldn't mind if this works out this year to see him get reps at free safety. With the coverage issues, I think he could eat into those 3rd and longs. I would just like to see him dabble into that free safety role, be able to read the quarterback's eyes, go and get the football. So I'm excited to see that transition at some point in his career. And hey, maybe that's with the Raiders.
Yeah. Maybe at some point they might do that this year because they do have a lot of corners on this roster.
Yeah.
And they got some young talent. So, and they drafted that corner in the draft, this last draft. So, I think it was Janoris. Was it Janoris Bennett? Jacorian Bennett?
Jacorian Bennett is the nickel DB that they got. And then they obviously drafted Chris Smith.
So you're calling him a nickel DB. You don't see him playing on the outside.
No, I see him playing predominantly on the outside. What I'm saying is he's going to play outside, and then I'm hoping in some situations at some point this year, I'd like to see him at the safety position. It's just I would more like him at free safety, kind of being that single highest safety in this defense, just because his tackling isn't very good. And I think Raider Nation needs to understand that a little bit early, is he's not the cleanest tackler. So guys like Nate Hobbs, Amik Robertson, Sam Webb, Tyler Hall, all these guys have Duke Shelley have an innate ability to get nasty in the run game, come downhill and clean up tackles. That's not necessarily going to be Marcus Peters' strength. You're going to see he's a see ball, get ball type of DB. So that's the style that you're getting in Marcus Peters. He's not like the other defensive backs that we have on the roster, which is also why I'm pretty intrigued, just because he gives you a different taste.
If he would have transitioned into safety, free safety is where you see him going.
Yeah, he's definitely not a strong safety. And it's just one of those, he's 30 years old. He had the ACL injury. I'm expecting him to bounce back, and I think he's actually going to do okay. I'm not going to say he's going to go out there and do great, but I think he's going to be good. And I think, anywhere from that 4 to 5 interception mark this year, I think it'll be huge for the Raiders defense. It'll be far and above an upgrade of what we've had in recent history. But say this works out with the Raiders on this 1-year deal, and he does decide to come back and play for us. Yeah. I wouldn't mind seeing that 24 transition to a safety like we've seen in times past. And I would be curious to see how that works.
Okay, so just to be clear, and salute to everybody in the chat. We forgot to shout everybody out. We appreciate everybody coming through. Linnell, man, appreciate you coming through. My guy, Hatamaki, man, appreciate you coming through. Man, LV Maximus in the building, man. Hey, man, we're here to talk Raider football. But yeah, no, just to be clear, Raider Ray's saying that, the Raiders brought him to be a cornerback, but he can possibly see him, projecting out to that safety position. But, hey, at the end of the day, like if Trayvon Moehrig does his job, if the guy that they drafted in the 5th round, which even though he's a 5th round rookie, I think they think highly of him, especially him making plays in college. But we'll see how everything works out. But let's get.
I think
go ahead.
Trayvon Merrick is really going to have to fight for a job this year. One, he's a Gus Bradley guy. He was drafted by Gruden. They gave him every opportunity last year. He struggled. And you go out and get a Chris Smith, which I'm really big on Chris Smith. I think he's going to be a really good pro. And we'll see how he does his rookie year. But at some point, Chris Smith is going to start for the Raiders defense. And, you know, when I bring up Marcus Peters at the free safety spot, that's not where they're going to put him. That's just somewhere where I'm interested in. He's going to be a boundary corner for the Raiders day one. But Chris Smith is going to really push Trayvon Merrick, I think, especially if he can have a really strong camp. Trayvon Merrick is going to open up the season as the starter, but don't be surprised week 4, week 5, if Trayvon Merrick isn't getting it done. I really think by the end of the season, Chris Smith could be starting at free safety for the Raiders.
Man, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Throwing your in-season predictions already.
Yeah.
So you wanted me to play this soundbite of a player that was recently signed. No one really knows too much of him. I think you said that he played,
defensive
he was signed
end
last offseason. Isaac Rochelle. Is that how you pronounce his name?
Yep.
So I'm going to play a little bit of a soundbite from what he said. I thought it was interesting too. But let's play this real quick. Let me see if I can get this going.
It's so thankful. And this is a good football team. I mean, they made a lot of decisions this offseason. Listen, whether I was signed or not, I would be like, they made some good decisions. I won't go into crazy detail, but I feel really confident about, you know, the Raiders as a football team. A whole nother side.
So it was a quick little soundbite from a player that was recently signed with the Raiders. Obviously, he's gonna say all the right things. But why did you think this clip was interesting?
I thought this clip was very interesting because what were the decisions that the Raiders made this offseason? They move on from a 9-year quarterback. They move on from tight ends Aaron Waller. So if you're taking subtle, not shots, he's not taking subtle shots, but he's just expressing his opinion on, hey, the Raiders made some big decisions in the offseason on what direction they're going to want to go. And this is a player who is on the roster, and he's saying, ultimately, I think that this is a good decision, and I think that they made good football decision moves. So that's a player that's inside the locker room, just to kind of give you a perspective on maybe how other players in the organization feel. Obviously, it's got to be about Derek Carr, right? That was the biggest move. So to me, it was just interesting that you have this guy who's signed, who was formerly with the Raiders, who is in agreement with the offseason moves, and says, hey, look, even if I wasn't part of the Raiders team, I would say that's a good football team. I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting for him to say that the way he said it, because the moves you did that was a really good point, because we didn't really make a lot of big moves.
No,
there was a lot of role players signed in free agency. Not really too many big signings. I mean, we signed Garoppolo, Marcus Epps first day of free agency, and then from there it's a lot of role players, guys that can probably contribute to the team, but not heavy hitters like we're used to seeing in free agency, where we're excited. Like, to me, in my opinion, this was night and day compared to last offseason. Offseason, we're like, oh my God, we're thinking about the possibilities. Now our expectations a little bit lowered. We're kind of wait and see. We're trying to figure out this team.
But that's almost not a bad thing. You know, I'm kind of okay with it, because like we kind of addressed it, and they addressed every level of this team in free agency and in draft. And when you look at the draft, I feel like, man, we're going to look back and say this has the potential to be a really big building block, foundational draft. Yeah. Ja'Cory Bennett has a lot of potential at that nickel spot. Chris Smith looks like one of those guys who's a late-round draft pick who could potentially end up starting for you. Byron Young doesn't have a ton of competition on the inside. He could get starting reps pretty early. Larry Wilson, 7th overall pick. He's going to get a lot of playing time early. Michael Mayer's going to contribute as a rookie. So you just keep going down this draft list, and you're like, yeah, these guys are going to have an opportunity to go out there and compete. Then you hit free agency and you get a starting safety. You go get a middle linebacker. You know, regardless of how you feel about Robert Spillane, he's gotten better each year. And now he has a full-time role. It's just, I don't know. It was quieter. It wasn't as sexy and splashy.
Yeah,
but I think that you went out and got some serious depth at much needed positions.
Nah, I'm with you. I'm slowly, but I'm kind of with that wait and see approach. I'm kind of like trying to figure this team out. Like I said, they didn't really make a little big moves, and I agree with them not making big moves, because if you look at this team, they're not they need to make some chess moves.
Yeah.
They can't make checker moves. They have to like, and you kind of heard McDaniels kind of alluding to that earlier in the offseason in his conference where he's talking about, well, in 2 years, you know, like even though Raider fans don't want to hear that, that's just the reality. Right now, do we have the quarterback on the roster that can take us and win the Super Bowl? That you know, and we'll get into that too. We'll get into that. That might be a good transition.
No,
That
yeah, I think the Raiders are also in a state, Pharaoh, that you've got to hit on some of these lesser contracts. You've got to try and hope and pray that you hit on a Duke Shelley, you know, that you hit on a Marcus Epps, that you hit on a Robert Spillane, and you know you hit on a Tyree Wilson, and like you're in a position where you're going to hit on these low guaranteed money contracts in order to amplify this roster and this team. And I think that's the direction that I'm excited to see, because I want to see this coaching staff's ability to scout talent. I want to see if they're able to turn the rocks over and find guys that maybe are overlooked and they're just system fits. And what I like about this is I don't know what this is going to look like. This is the first time in almost 10 years that we have a new signal caller starting week 1 that isn't named Derek Carr. And it's just intriguing because I have no idea what this is going to look like. Yeah. We can look at Kyle Shanahan film, but let's just be honest. That is not going to be the same system that we're running here.
No.
So, I mean, I'm really intrigued for this year because I think the Raiders could be sneaky good or they could be really bad.
Okay. So you kind of ended in on the right note.
Yeah.
And Jimmy G's officially back from injury. He passed his physical on Sunday officially, and then I think he showed up to training camp today. He reported with all the vets, so he's going to be 100% participant in training camp, which is a good sign because he needs to get reps with Devontae. Even though as great as Devontae Adams, he needs to get that chemistry built with his receiving core, led by Devontae Adams, the big dog. And then obviously, you know, some of the incoming draftees like Michael Mayer, you know, because we know how Jimmy G likes to throw to the tight end as well with his time with the Patriots, with the Niners, and now with the Raiders. So and you know, let's not forget about Renfro too, slot receiver. You know, so these are all weapons that he needs to get used to playing with, and I think that is a good sign that he's playing, that he's going to be in training camp for pretty much the entirety of training camp. But that being said, let's get into Jimmy G. And just overall, because last week on the show got a little I won't say aggressive, but you know, we went a little back and forth with Jimmy G. Some people had strong opinions about like, hey, you know, he's a winner, he's this and that. And you know, if you look at the stats, he's 38-17 in regular season with the Niners, 4-2 in the postseason, including a 2019 Super Bowl run. Now, that being said, me and Ray, before the show started, we pulled up his postseason stats. And I want you guys to take a look at this. I'm not 100% sold on Jimmy G. Now, I'm not saying he's a bad player. I'm just saying, is this the guy? We all have that question, right? We should have that question, but some people are sold already. And I'm going to let me pull this up real quick. I'm going to pull up his stat line and his postseason stat line. So how do I do this? Let me see. Okay. What's going on?
All right, I'm gonna love this because I think this is gonna be a good exchange because
I want to hear your thoughts too.
Yeah.
What do you think about these stats? How do you feel about this? Because I know you have strong opinions.
Yep.
Do you see it?
Yeah, it's pretty small. If you could zoom in a little bit.
I'm gonna get a little bit closer. All right. So look,
that's better.
This is Jimmy G. So we're not going to look at when he didn't play. Obviously, he didn't play. We can't look at that. We can't judge that. But we can look at when he did play. And this is when he was with the Niners. So in 2019, he played against Minnesota, 11 for 19.
This is postseason, correct?
Postseason. Yeah, postseason. Okay. It's postseason, just to be clear.
Okay.
This is his postseason, what he's done in the postseason, because everybody's calling him a winner, right? So you look at here, 2020, Minnesota versus the 49ers. Garoppolo was a starting quarterback, 11 for 19, 57%, 58% completion, 131 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. 6.89 yards per attempt. Nothing exciting, but he got the W, y'all. Like, he won. And then at the same year against Green Bay, where I think this might have been a game where they dominated in the ground game. He was 6 for 8, 75% completion, 77 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions.
Something tells me he got hurt and didn't come back that game.
Or if we can look up this game, we'll after we go through the stats, we'll just click on here and we'll look at, like, did the 49ers dominate the run game? Because it could have been a situation like that. I mean, Green Bay, was it in Green Bay?
And that could have been the case too.
It could have
They
been
probably ran the ball heavy.
Yeah, we know that the Niners are a run-heavy team with Debo and whoever running back they're running with now with McCaffrey. But then this is the year they went to the Super Bowl. They played Kansas City. They lost 20-31. Jimmy G was 20-31, 219 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interception. I think that's when the Niners kind of figured out, like, is this the guy? Because they couldn't respond to Patrick Mahomes. And, Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. But at the end of the day, like, let's be honest. He's in our division. We got to figure that situation out, right? And then so we go on to 2022. The next time he makes his appearance in the playoffs, he's 16 for 25. This is against Dallas, and they win. He gets a W, but he's 16 for 25, 64% completion, 172 yards, and 1 interception. Same playoffs against Green Bay again, 11 for 19, 131 yards, 1 interception. Against the Rams, they lose 17-20, 16 for 30. His best game, yards-wise and touchdowns, I guess, 232 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. But when you look at this, do you see a player that dominated, that carried this team to victory? You know what I mean?
So are you ready for my opinion?
Go ahead, Ray. I've been talking a lot. I mean, I think the chat is tired of me talking right now. So let's get Ray to come in and.
Here's my opinion of all the stats that you just read.
You know what? Before you say anything, do you want to see the box score of that game?
I don't even have. Well, okay, yeah, pull that up real quick.
All right. Let's see. And the Green Bay game that we pulled out
37-20.
Right there, right? Where he was 6 for 8 for 77 yards. Okay. Yep. All right. So let me click here. Do you see it?
Yep.
Okay. So let me get into.
Go to player stats.
Player stats or team stats?
Just go to player just so I can see if any quarterbacks got reps outside of Jimmy G.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to see rushing yards. Rushing yards. The 49ers
285 yards.
285 yards and 4
touchdowns.
And 4 touchdowns. Almost 300 yards.
Yeah, you don't have to throw the football.
So you don't have to throw the football at all. So I'm just saying. But everybody's calling him a winner, which is fine. Okay, it's okay. I'm playing devil's advocate, y'all. Like, don't take this personally.
Yeah, go back to that stat screen that you just had.
Do you want the player stats?
No. Just go back to Jimmy G's postseason. I just want to show you something real quick since we're into stats right now.
All right.
I want you to go down to the bottom of that after that ad goes away.
Yeah.
Because there's one stat on here that we have not addressed.
Okay.
If you look down at the very bottom, it says 7 games. There's a record there that says 5-2. I want you to let me know how many postseason games the Raiders have been to since 9 years ago. How many times have we punched a ticket into the postseason? What is our record in the postseason?
Well, these are 6 games that he played in. What was,
down at the very bottom. Very bottom. It says 5-2.
So in 2015, he played. Oh, he came in when the New England was winning against Indy 45-7. So they're counting that as a W for him.
Okay, well let's go to 4-2.
See, all this comes with an asterisk. You got to put an asterisk with this 5-2 because it's like
I don't. They're in the postseason, and he's the starting quarterback. And when he was healthiest, they were in a Super Bowl. Regardless of his stat numbers, his stat line, it is what it is. It's a team football. It's a team game. But outside of that, his second healthiest season, he made it to the NFC Championship. When was the last time the Raiders even sniffed that?
Yeah, no, facts, 100%. And I hope we win every game. We go to playoffs and win a Super Bowl.
No, I'm not, and I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that the Raiders are going to Super Bowl, anything. What I'm saying is for Jimmy G as a player, the fact that he has an NFC championship, the fact that he's gone to a Super Bowl, and yet we just throw so much shade. I get that his numbers aren't that sexy, or you could say he had a really good defense, or he had skill position players. If you take Teddy Bridgewater and put him on the San Francisco 49ers, they're not going to the NFC championship game. If you take any other average one, what is the dude that played for the Jets here recently? Zach Wilson. You take Zach Wilson and you put him on the 49ers. Do you think they're going to an NFC championship game? Do you think they're going to a Super Bowl? He's got a stacked defense. He's got a ton of weapons. You still have to play the quarterback position.
Yeah.
You still have to lead the locker room. You still have to make plays. He's played in a lot of big moments. He's come clutch in a lot of big moments. He's got a huge winning percentage. Yeah, he's not sexy. He's never going to be that guy. But he can put the team in a situation to stay on balance and on time. And at the end of the games, when you have to get the ball into somebody's hand, it may not go to Jimmy G's stat, but it might go to Josh Jacobs. It might go to Devontae Adams. It might go to Hunter Renfrow. So that's where stats, you can always manipulate stats to lean one way or another. We can make Jimmy G look like garbage, or we can make Jimmy G look like the best Raiders quarterback that we've had in the last however long. So to me, I want to see him play. I want to see him lead this team. And I'm just curious to see what it looks like to have a new signal caller at quarterback. I see it both ways, so I get it.
No, I get you 100%. And salute to Raider Alex, man. Appreciate you coming through, man. Y'all haven't subscribed, go ahead and check his channel. He has really dope content, Raider content. And he says it was an NFC championship game and SF dominated on the ground. No need for the Niners to throw the ball very much. Okay. Yeah. No, I agree with that. My point is that his supporting cast has been so great that it's been able to mask his flaws, because every player has their flaws, right?
Of course.
And we can say, in my opinion, I think, Jimmy G has some flaws. And I don't think he's a guy that can carry a team. I don't think he has the greatest arm. Now, we have to nitpick this. I'm not trying to be negative or anything like that. I'm gonna watch every Raider game. It doesn't matter. But what I'm saying is that at the end of the day, like, if you're looking at a guy like Jimmy G and you're in the AFC West, it is what it is. I just got done watching the quarterback documentary with Patrick Mahomes, and it sucks because he's dominating our division. He's in our division. Then you got Justin Herbert, who just signed a 5-year extension for over $250 million. So he's going to be with the Chargers. So when I compare, I'm comparing him, whether you like it or not. I'm comparing Jimmy G to those quarterbacks because we're going to play them twice a year. So the Raiders, I think the bigger question is the Raiders have to figure out a way to beat these teams with Jimmy G at quarterback, because Jimmy G by himself I don't think is going to be enough to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. He's just not that type of quarterback.
Well, let's also take a look back on last season as well, as how many games we lost by one score or less. I don't think skill position players are the weakness of this team. I don't think Jimmy G is just coming to an offense where he's going to have to carry it. You've got the number one wide receiver in football. When healthy, you've got a pretty dominant slot receiver, which with Jimmy G's statistics on third down and Hunter Renfrow's ability to get open on third down, I think that connection might be a little bit better than what, is being talked about right now. Michael Mayer. I mean, we could go down the list. And if Josh Jacobs comes in and plays on the tag, you've got the league's leading rusher last season. So he's not stepping into an offense where he does have to carry it. He's stepping into an offense where he needs to facilitate the ball to go where it needs to go.
Right.
And that's something that he does well. So that's why, to me, it's a good fit. But no, look, we all – there's so many –
But let me speak to what you just said, because you said he needs to facilitate the offense, and a lot of the weapons, not named Josh Jacobs, obviously, because he runs the ball, and every now and then he'll catch a pass out the backfield, are receiving options. So if he's going to be doing that, would you expect him to have big numbers with Devontae Adams and Michael Mayer at tight end, who we are expecting to be a solid tight end, if not good to great tight end, hopefully? And then you got Renfrow, who's proven. He's a proven slot receiver in the league, one of the best slots, one of the best route runners. Then you got Jacoby Myers coming, So you would expect him to put numbers. So are you not going to expect him?
No, like here's the thing. Like Derek Carr didn't put up gaudy numbers, but look at how many one-score games we were into. I don't think that's necessarily Josh McDaniels' formula. He's not like Andy Reid, where he's going to run up 35 to 42 points in a game, and that's not necessarily Jimmy G's game either. So we're not at the expense to be able to do those kind of things. Where Jimmy G is going to be able to win is those one-score games. Hopefully, obviously, I'm not going to say he's going to do that guaranteed. And look, when I'm talking about this, Jimmy G is not an elite quarterback. Jimmy G is not a great quarterback. But Jimmy G can move the football efficiently in this offense, I believe. And as long as the Raiders defense can kind of keep scores down or create a little bit more turnovers and give the offense a little bit more opportunities this year, all I'm saying is they have a chance. And by chance, I mean they have a chance to win a few football games. So we'll see.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right. I hope that him coming back to play for his former coach, the guy that drafted him, he knows his skill set. He knows his strengths. He knows his weaknesses. He knows him personally. Hey, that's a good gamble. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hey, McDaniels is gambling on Jimmy G. Let's be honest. Like he's gambling because if it goes left and it's really bad, it's not a good look for McDaniels. And you probably could say the same for Dave Z too as well, because he had to signed the contract and yada yada yada. But I think McDaniels most importantly because this is his guy. So I hope that everything works out. Hey, they got a full training camp to get that chemistry going. But I see what you're saying, man. I get it. I get it. He's not going to be running the same offense, that same Kyle Shanahan offense.
It's going to be such a coin flip. Like in this entire discussion, you're right, and I believe I'm right. You know what I mean? And it's the coin flip of how this season could go. Because everything that you're saying, it could allude to. Yeah. This team could be far and better above talent, and he might be what's holding the offense back, with his ability to not push the football down the field, his ability, maybe the not sexy numbers, but then there's an opportunity to where, hey, if this defense improves like they've tried to do and throw more talent on that side of the football and improve on turnovers. Yeah. Who knows? If we get more at-bats on offense and able to distribute the ball where the ball needs to go with these offensive playmakers, who knows?
I will say, and we're gonna transition. We're gonna transition. I'm gonna take this off the screen real quick. We're gonna transition. And shout out to the chat, man. And my guy D Menace, one of my mods, man. My guy, he has a reminder for y'all, man. Let me pull this out right. He has a nice little reminder, man. Make sure to hit that like button. If you haven't already, please hit that like button. It's very important. It's huge for their algorithm. We've been out for a while. We took a little mini vacation, so we need to get it back up. So we need y'all to support. And one of the ways you guys can support is to subscribe and also hit that like button if you guys haven't already. And obviously, my guy Raider Ray, he has his own channel as well. We switch off every week. Last week we kicked it off on his channel, and this week was on my channel. So if you haven't subscribed to my guy right here, make sure to subscribe to Raider Ray's channel, because I am on there pretty much every other week. But yeah, let's transition, because one of the big things to me for Garoppolo to be successful is to have a run game. Yep. And my guy Josh Jacobs is holding out. And I know we talked about this, we touched on it a little bit, and with him, falling short on the negotiations last week. But Saquon Barkley, he just signed a deal. He kind of gave in a little bit, which didn't make any sense.
And it's just weird, an extra $1 million, and it was all incentive based. It's just like, does it make sense to you? If you're going to hold out like this, was this the end game?
So do you know the full contract details? Is it 100% incentive based, or what's going on?
No. So $10 million of it is fully guaranteed, just like the franchise tag would have been. Okay. And then it's like $1 million that he could earn up to. So it's like $11 million. So it's a $1 million increase in pay of incentives. And it's just like, was this the end game of holding out and fighting for the position? Yeah. And you went up $1 million. The whole situation's weird. And it's like, now it puts Josh Jacobs in a weird spot, because Josh Jacobs probably had a better offer on the table that he just said no to, that he's probably getting paid more than what Saquon is getting paid right now. So it's weird. it kind of took the leverage out of Josh Jacobs' hand a little bit. Now I feel like, what is he going to sign the tag? Like, what is going to happen in this whole situation?
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I think he might just wait it out and just be ready, week 1 possibly. But yeah, that signing kind of throws everything off. That was kind of weird. Like, what was
everything that they were pulling for? It just kind of, I don't know. It fell flat on its face for me. Like,
yeah, and I didn't know they can negotiate that type of contract. I guess it could only be 1 year.
I didn't know that either.
That was kind of random. I thought like once that deadline, July 17th,
that was weird.
Came and gone. Like, I thought it was done. Like, they couldn't negotiate anymore. But I guess we were wrong. I guess they can negotiate a 1-year contract, I guess, because that's all it was. It's just a 1-year deal. And then Saquon's going to be back on the market next season. And, the same thing's probably going to repeat itself. He's going to have to fight for his contract. The running back market, man, it's tough, man. And we kind of got into it a little bit about how, T Severe, shout out to him. He called in and he was talking about how, like, hey, Josh Jacobs should have signed that deal, man. Whoever's agent.
Mm-hmm. He should have, because look, like, now that market value is just, it's almost going to get worse, because the NFL as a whole is going to see how this whole picture went, that these running backs weren't signing big contracts. So it's not like next year it's just going to get better. Right. If anything, it's probably going to get worse from here. Yeah. So I don't know, man. Me personally, I agree with T Severe. I think Josh Jacobs probably should have taken the deal that's on the table. And if it was the 3-year guaranteed, then get through the first 2 years and go into renegotiations. You know what I mean? It's just, I think it was just a bad play on his agent.
Yeah, man. So we'll be on the lookout, man. We don't want to. We everybody's kind of hammering on the head at this point. Like, Josh Jacobs is holding out as so far. But, hey, it wouldn't be surprised if he signed at any day now, or he waited until week 1. I feel like, if you're just going to hold out, just hold out the rest. Because he's a running back, he takes a lot of a beat. They take a beating. I mean, he doesn't really have to, like, get that many reps to get it going, in my opinion. What do you think? Do you think that he needs training camp like that?
No. Josh Jacobs is in a spot in his career. He doesn't necessarily need training camp. As long as he'd be ready to go week 1 and maybe has, like, a week of ramp-up period, then I'm not worried about that at all. But Josh McDaniels had a press conference today, and Josh gets a lot of crap thrown his way, and I would agree with a lot of it. I think a lot of it is well justified, and I think we're pretty hard on our head coaches because we're trying to raise a standard here with the Raiders, and we're trying to get back to the winning ways. And us as a fan base has always held these people accountable. But what I thought was interesting from his press conference today, and I want to get your opinion on it as well, is the reports is that Josh McDaniels has kind of been hands off in the situation and has a really good relationship with Josh Jacobs and fully respects and trusts his decision to hold out and get what he deserves. And this is more of a Dave Ziegler and, the agent side of negotiating a deal. And I know he gets a lot of criticism about these player relationships, but from all accounts, from what I've been hearing lately, especially from the players, it sounds to me like Josh McDaniels is slowly working on this character that he has and this relationship that he has with the players. And it seems like it's getting better and they're getting closer to him. How do you feel about Josh McDaniels kind of taking a step back and developing those relationships with the players?
I mean, I think it's smart because I think with Denver, I think he was a little bit too hands-on as far as, I don't know, contract negotiation, trades. If you remember, I think one of the reasons why Jay Cutler he wanted to trade Jay Cutler, and then once he couldn't make it happen, then Jay Cutler heard about it, and it kind of, he rubbed the locker room a little bit. And if you guys remember, Jay Cutler was a quarterback for the Denver Broncos, and Josh McDaniels was a head coach over there, and it didn't go well. He rubbed the locker room the wrong way. He rubbed a lot of people in Denver the wrong way at his first stint as a head coach. But I think it's smart. I think there's a reason why he wanted to come back with Dave Z, because it was a guy that he trusts. They have the same type of philosophy, and he wanted him to handle the business side where he can coach on the football side. I feel like when it's mixed, it's very tricky, because now you're talking to players, and are you really genuine? Hey, you're our guy, man. And I know, John Gruden, he was the GM, he was the coach.
And that's what I was going to allude to, because it was such a different dynamic, because Mike Mayock is like, He's like a chairman GM, you know, he doesn't have final say.
Right.
So is that necessarily better for the Raiders? Because it just looks like this is Dave Ziegler. His hands are on the wheel. He's the one pulling the trigger, making these financial decisions, weighing out what's best for the Raiders present, the Raiders future, and how we kind of navigate through that. Which dynamic do you prefer? Do you prefer the John Gruden approach where the head coach has final say on the guys that he's bringing in and working with? Or do you like the route that the Raiders are currently going in and that we actually have a general manager? And then there's that split between head coach duty and general manager duty.
I like structure. With structure, people have titles, people have responsibilities, and they have a job. There needs to be a GM, there needs to be a president, there needs to be an owner. Everybody has their responsibilities, so everybody knows where everybody stands. I feel like it gets really tricky when you put too much power in one person's hand. It's just too much. I know there's only been a couple of examples, and they are exceptions. Let's be honest, where a coach had more responsibilities as a GM and as a head coach and was successful. I think it was obviously Bill Belichick, and maybe taking it back to the 80s with the 49ers head coach, Bill Walsh. I think, was he a GM? I don't know if anybody in the chat, man, if y'all NFL fans back in the 80s, man, if y'all know Bill Walsh, I think he was was he a GM and a head coach for the 49ers? But either way, my point is, for me, I like structure. I feel like you just need to have that in order to be successful. And I think it gets tricky when you give one person too much power. And we've seen it with John Gruden, an emotional guy, emotional head coach. I think as a head coach, he can be good. But I think just as a head coach, I think he needs an offensive coordinator. I think he needs the defensive coordinator. I think he needs a GM. He needs all that in order for him to be successful, because he's just too emotional where he'll get mad at the player and be like, he'll cut him, but then realize like, oh, okay, you just cut a really talented player and now we have nobody to replace him, and now our roster is that much weaker. You get what I'm trying to say? You guys?
No, I get it 100%.
Right.
And I feel like we go from this charismatic character in John Gruden, which what we get to see in the press conference is this animated, charismatic, well articulated. You know, he was that clip the audio and you have a topic for an hour to talk about. And we don't get that with Josh McDaniels. And Josh McDaniels, I feel like we've got a really good football mind who's really learning how to be a leader and be a communicator. And I think you see that even in his press conferences, right? He almost looks uncomfortable at times to be in front of people and getting asked questions. And you could just tell it's not his avenue. Mm-hmm. But it just seems like, is there a situation, because I'm curious on how you feel about it, can you see Josh McDaniels having success, and maybe not in the ways that we've seen John Gruden when we would win and he would have all the right things to say and get you, animated and hyped up and all of this? Is there a way where you can see Josh McDaniels finding success with the Raiders and maybe some of those one-score games get turned around and him have success as a head coach in this league?
Possibly, yeah. But if you ask Brandon Marshall, no. You know what I mean? Like, he still doesn't believe in him being a people guy. You know what I mean? He has everything but that. But I have my doubts. I'm not gonna lie. I have my doubts with Josh McDaniels, because as bad as Derek Carr was last season, there were instances where I'm like, why didn't we run the ball? Why didn't we use Josh Jacobs earlier in the season? Like, it was just moments where, there were some mistakes being made. And I think there's a little bit of that too, but I think now, like, hey, look, no one's questioning him when it comes to X's and O's, but it's just, is he a guy as a head coach that can lead this team to wins and a possible Super Bowl? I'm still, we started this show, wait and see. This whole offseason, this whole preseason, even up all the way up until we get into the season, it's a wait and see approach. Last season, totally different vibe. I was excited. I'm over here calling my shot. I'm like, hey, man, we're going to win this many games. Carr's going to have this many yards. Devontae's going to have this many yards, and yada, yada, yada. Waller, Renfro. And we've seen what happened. So now it's kind of a wait and see approach, because there's a lot of unknowns. There's not a lot of for sure things where you could hang your hat on. Max Crosby, yes. Devontae Adams, yes. But McDaniels, he's still in that wait and see. Your mic went out.
Now you can hear me.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah. And you're right. You're right. And about the whole wait and see approach with Josh McDaniels. I do think what I feel like I could put my hat on, though, I really do trust Dave Ziegler. And I really like Champ Kelly. I think he's going to be a GM in the National Football League. These are two guys who I feel like Mark Davis, and you don't have Dave Ziegler and Champ Kelly without Josh McDaniels. So it goes hand in hand because you have the potential, especially, and we'll see how this draft goes and the players that they ended up bringing in and if they are those cornerstone type of players. But you're in a situation where you might have a GM who's able to assemble a really good football team, but the head coach might get exploited in the fact that he doesn't know how to step into that leadership role and put these players in a position. I don't know. You know what I mean? I think Dave Ziegler and Champ Kelly are really good. I really do. I think the Raiders have I don't want to say home run, but I do want to say home run. I think they're that good. So
to keep it real with you, now that I think about it, like I think the bigger hotter seat is going to be the defensive coordinator.
He'll be the first to go.
I think he's going to be the bigger scapegoat if like the Raider season doesn't go as planned, but then there's some bright spots on offense and players play well. Yeah. And then like with the defense falters, even if it was because of injuries, I think the scapegoat will probably be, okay, we need another defensive coordinator and Patrick Graham is going to get replaced. So I think he's more of on a hot seat than McDaniels because Mark Davis actually believes in McDaniels. He thinks this guy's a genius. He believes in him. You know, he believes in this guy. So, you know, I think he's probably going to get another year after this, at least another year.
So talking about coaches, I just kind of want to transition into this real quick. So as I was diving into the Marcus Peters signing, obviously there's a terminology in football that rush and coverage work together. So as I was looking into our secondary, into our coverages, it also led me into the defensive line. So getting into our coverages, I kind of want to break down what the Raiders do behind the line of scrimmage. And then I want to kind of break down an addition that I'm really excited about that I don't think we talk about enough because I think he could bring a dynamic to the Raiders and something that we've been missing. So Raiders coverage, defensive backs, Patrick Graham, 2022. When you look at the coverages, so 0, cover 1, cover 2, cover 3, quarters, I kind of want to break down these percentages. And we're talking about 0 blitzes. We're talking about sending everyone. And we actually ranked 8th in the NFL. We use 0 coverage 2.9% of the time. And I know that might not sound like a lot. That's actually a high statistic for the NFL is to run that much cover 0. Cover 1, which is your man coverage, which everybody's talked about Patrick Graham being known for. We ran that 25.1% of the time, which put us at 7th in the National Football League. So he's definitely leaning towards a man coverage system, which I think bodes well for the guys that we brought in. But I thought it was interesting because this year I think you're going to see a little bit more zone concept. Cover 2, he ran 15.2% of the time, which was 14th. It's almost dead even in the NFL. Cover 3, which is a system we came from that Nate Hobbs thrived in, we ran that 35.6% of the time, which put us 15th in the NFL. So it's an up and increase of percentage, but it's still about middle of the pack. And so I'm really curious to see because it's an average split. And when I started breaking down and peeling those back, on second down, we ran the 5th most cover 0 in the National Football League at 37.2%. So historically, third down is the down where you traditionally blitz, right? We only blitz 25% of the time, which is a quarter of the time. That's 24th in the NFL. So what Patrick Graham was doing was he was stopping the run, first down. Second down, it was that 2nd and 8. He was wanting to get a sack to create 3rd and long, and then he's going to sit in coverage.
Right.
That's where I'm kind of looking forward to this year. Like, how are we going to adapt to that? And was that because the pass rush wasn't there? The ability to blitz wasn't there. So you had to get there on second down to create 3rd and longs to get off the football field. So as I was diving into that a little bit, it led into us moving on from Frank Oakham, who was the defensive line coach last season. So in we brought Rob Leonard. And just to give you guys a little bit of context of Rob Leonard, because I think it was a sneaky under the radar type of addition. In 2013 through 2016, he was with the New York Giants. Part of that staff, he improved the most It was the most improved defense. They were 32nd in the National Football League. Within 2 years of Patrick Graham and Rob Leonard working together, they got to the 10th ranked defense in the National Football League. When you move into his time with the Miami Dolphins, where he became the D-line coach, the same role that he's taking over for the Las Vegas Raiders. He spent 3 years in Miami. When he inherited the team, he inherited the NFL's worst defensive line with 23 sacks in 2019. To put that in perspective, the Raiders had 21 and a half sacks last year. Very similar situation that he's walking into. The year he takes over, he ends up with 41 sacks, which is 11th most in the NFL. 29 takeaways, which was the most in the NFL. And 31.2% third down defense. Now talk about a guy who can generate pass rush. This is a guy who could do it. In 2021, his final year with the Miami Dolphins, 48 sacks, which led to 5th in the NFL. I bring all that up to lead into this. The Raiders went out there and got a very promising defensive end in Tyree Wilson. This guy's had success with rookies. Matter of fact, in let's see where it was. Jalen Phillips with the Miami Dolphins as a rookie, 8.5 sacks, 2nd in the NFL when it came to rookies in that list. When he gets his hands, Odafe Owe, Justin Houston, and Baltimore, both seen increases in production when it came to pass rush. All I'm saying is Rob Leonard has an opportunity to come in here and to help these young guys. You know, an Adam Plant, a Malcolm Kuntz, Chandler Jones, he's getting a veteran pass rusher, much like he had in Baltimore with Justin Houston. You've got Max Crosby, a potential defensive player of the year, and now you throw in this freak of a football player in Tyree Wilson, who has all the length, all the power in the world.
Right.
I'm just saying, Rob Leonard might be a coach to circle because I think he's going to bring some increased production on the D-line.
Man, you know what has me excited? If we can get our pass rush going, and you got a guy like Marcus Peters hungry.
That's what I'm saying.
Prove
That's what I'm saying.
that he still got it. He's playing for his hometown team. You know what I mean? I know they're playing in Vegas, but he's from his point of view, this is the Oakland Raiders. It's not the Las Vegas Raiders. He's looking at it as the Oakland Raiders, silver and black, and he's a playmaker. He's a ball hawk. So if you give him a pass rush, whoo, I want to see a couple of house calls from him, man. If I see a couple of house calls this year, I'm going crazy.
I know, and that's the thing. Like, Rob Leonard helps this rushing coverage because even for the Ravens in 2022, they were top 5 in 4 categories at his position coach. They were 3rd in points allowed, 3rd in defensive red zone percentage, 3rd in rushing defense, and 4th on third down percentages. Their linebackers alone had 19.5 sacks. So when it comes to production and coming to help out this Raiders defense, if Rob Leonard can come in here and create a sense of rush, they don't even have to be in the top 5 like he's had historically. If they could be in that 10 range, and I don't like to do those kind of projections, but if they can generate some type of pressure on the quarterback, this secondary that the Raiders have thrown a ton of talent at, Marcus Rogers, Nate Hobbs, Duke Shelley is a really good football player. Jacorian Bennett, Amik Roberts, Sam Webb, Tyler Hall.
Yeah. When
you go down the list of these names, these are good football players.
Yeah.
Now, if we can generate a rush, man, who knows? Who knows?
So you're seeing an improvement on the defensive side of the ball for sure.
Yeah, I'm saying that they've put a guy in place that could improve an area that was a significant weakness. Now, I said all that about the pass rush. The guys on the interior really have to get it done. You know, Byron Young's got to be held. Jerry Tillery's got to come into camp the best version of himself. You know, Neil Farrell Jr. and, you know, Adam Butler, those guys have to take an increase. You know what I mean? They have to step their game up.
Don't forget about the linebackers. Diablo needs to take the next step. And they're betting on Diablo taking that next step. And I think he has the green dot, I believe.
And I don't like – honestly, if I could give the green dot, it's to Spillane right now.
Yeah, Spillane? Okay.
Yeah, I'm giving it to Spillane just because he's played in more games. He does everything that Divine Diablo can do and a little bit better, in my opinion, because everybody always talks about Divine Diablo in pass coverage, and it's just not there. Run defense, I really like his ability to read lanes and sniff it out, and he's a pretty good tackler, but when it comes to coverage, he's not as good as what everybody hypes him up to be. You know, these safeties converted to linebackers, it's not just a smooth transition like that. And just because he played coverage on a back end of a defense for Virginia Tech doesn't mean he's going to switch positions in the NFL and be this guy who can cover Travis Kelce. It's just not going to happen. So his coverage ability, for me, what I watch on tape, it's not that great. So right now, I would probably give it to Spillane, but higher upside. I would say Diablo has a higher upside. But you've got all these UDFAs that are coming in. So just like the running back position for me, Pharaoh, I think the linebackers position is seeing a similar market, as these guys aren't making a ton of money unless they're in the elite tier. And it looks like the Raiders are deciding to go cheap at the linebacker position.
It's funny because we've been talking about a lot of Josh Jacobs and how he's probably going to be holding out a training camp. We don't know when he's going to be coming in. But we got to look at who's actually going to be there. And a guy that we haven't really talked about too much, and I know some other people already probably talked about him, but Zamir White.
Yeah.
He has an opportunity in front of him. The 7th-round rookie that we got out of UCLA, Britton Brown.
Yeah.
You know, and some other guys that, you know, that we haven't met. It's a running back. That running back room is full. So they're going to have an opportunity to show to this coaching staff, you know, the type of players that they are. Who do you think, if Josh Jacobs is not there, who would you say would start?
It's Zamir. Zamir's going to be the guy to kind of lead that workload, and then they would obviously divvy it up from there. I just don't want to get it too predictable, if that makes sense. I don't want to see the packages like Amir Abdullah comes in. Obviously, he's not going to be running in between the tackles. Like, it's just not his game. He's going to be used in the passing game. I just remember with John Gruden, there was packages and formations where you kind of knew what was coming, right? They would bring in the receiving back, and you just kind of knew that the ball, like Kenyon Drake, would come in. And I don't want to get into the predictable play calling. And I think if Josh Jacobs isn't there and you had to disperse the reps, Zamir White's going to be the guy. I'm curious to see Britton Brown too. You know, he was coming off of a knee injury. Historically, Josh McDaniels doesn't really use rookie running backs all that much. It's year 2 where they really start to get a lot more carries in his system. So I don't know. I think Zamir White and Britton Brown are 2 guys to be intrigued about heading into these preseason games. Yeah,
and Zamir White, he was on IR for the whole entire season, so he really didn't. We didn't even see him carry the ball. So I know he played in preseason last year, didn't he?
Yeah. And he averaged, I believe it was 4.2 yards a carry in preseason. He had 17 regular season carries for about 72 to 78 yards, something like that.
Yeah.
But when you go and watch Zamir White in college, something that is very similar, and I think it's why the Raiders liked him and brought him in, is their ability to run counter. And the Raiders run counter quite a bit here in this system under Josh McDaniels. And Zamir White, his ability to have vision, he has deceptive speed. A lot of people may not know that, but because we haven't seen him that much, but he has deceptive speed. And when he finds the lane and hits it, he's actually pretty productive. It's encouraging. Is he a Josh Jacobs? Absolutely not. You know, is he going to go run for 1,600 yards? Absolutely not. No. But can he move the chains? Could he win on first downs? Could he create second and shorts? Yeah, I think those are things that he could do very well.
You think Josh Jacobs get nervous if he sees Zamir White dominating in preseason?
Here's the thing: the old
dominating in training camp. You know,
the old verbiage in the NFL is you don't want coaching staff to get comfortable seeing other players, because if you can see Zamir White, you know, go in there, take advantage of the reps that he has in training camp. Take advantage of the reps that he gets in preseason, and maybe he pulls himself away from the pack of the Britton Browns and the Brandon Boldens and the Amir Abdullahs. If he can solidify himself as a guy who can take 20 carries a game or 15 carries, whatever their number is, you don't ever want to see another coach. You don't ever want to see your coaching staff get used to seeing another guy's number. So especially when there's that much money on the table and that kind of relationship splitting talk when it comes to contracts, it's just something to watch and navigate. So that's kind of my take on that.
Yeah, man. And hey, man, we talked about a lot today, man. We covered a lot. We talked about the recent moves, Jimmy G coming back, first day of training camp. Obviously, as training camp goes on, we're gonna have a lot to talk about. Who's intriguing battles, and we're gonna get into all of that. But we appreciate everybody coming through. My guy Debo says like Zeus, but not near JJ. I agree 100%.
Yeah, 100%.
And man, my guy, I gotta do it James Furpo style, man. He always comes in and says his favorite favorite way to salute everybody.
First one is season 2.
Hey man, every time he always leaving a comment. Ray.
Yeah, dude. We're back. That's for sure. Football's
Yeah,
back.
we are back, man. We are excited. The NFL season is pretty much almost here. I mean, we're a month away. I think a month and a half away. September is when the season really kicks off, regular season. But training camp is here. Preseason is not going to be too far away. But we appreciate everybody coming through. There's a few of y'all in here, so make sure to hit that like button for me.
And make sure you're subscribed to both channels. Like
Yeah,
we said earlier, we switch off, and we're not going to get into it right now at the end of the show, but we've got a big announcement here coming up. About some stuff in the future, very near future. So you guys are going to want to stick around and be subscribed to both channels, and I don't think you're going to be disappointed. So
facts 100%, man. And salute to my guy. I didn't even mention it, but if you guys were here at the beginning, you guys seen a new intro. Salute to my guy, Digital Prez.
Shout out.
You know the guy that runs that Raider Resistance. So if you guys ain't follow him on IG, make sure to go ahead and do that. And he's back on YouTube. So if you guys haven't subscribed, make sure to subscribe to his channel. My guy is talented. And I'm gonna end it. With that, man. I appreciate everybody coming through. And salute to Digital Prez, man, for this fire intro and outro.
Great Pharaoh. The gift of Troy is a fabulous fabric from the land of the 5 rivers.
Believe that the greatness of the Raiders would be in its future.
Just win, baby. Hello? You play to win the game. You don't play